This time I will call to order the regular meeting of the Cottonwood Planning and Zoning Commission on Monday, November 19th, 2018 at 6 p.m. Amber, may we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Hart.
Here.
Commissioner Dowell.
Here.
Commissioner Dowling.
Here.
Commissioner Narwood.
Here.
Vice Chairman Wasden.
Here.
Chairman Williams.
Here.
And Susan Masters absent.
And absent, okay. All right. The next item on the business is the approval of the minutes of the two meetings, October 15th, July 12th special meetings. Do I hear any corrections, additions, or modifications to those minutes? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes from our October 15th meeting, 2018.
And the July 12th.
And the July 12th, that's right, I saw those in there too.
Yeah.
Second.
Second?
No, 12th.
Yeah, okay. Vice Chairman's motion is seconded by Commissioner Norwood. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimously carried. All right, the call to the public. Again, I don't have any slips from anybody to talk about non-agenda items, so we'll go past that. And I want to alert everybody, we're going to change up the new business agenda just slightly. We're going to place item number 4, the Verde Valley Homeless Coalition Cold Weather Shelter, and number 5, the Single Family Residence C1 up front in the hearing tonight to expedite those particular items. First, we have old business, and I have none. So we'll proceed with PCU 18007, Verde Valley Homeless Coalition Cold Weather Shelter. Mr. Paget.
Just a second here. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Chairman Williams, I got to get my breath there after.
Yes.
Members of the commission. As you said, this is a conditional use permit request for the Verde Valley Homeless Coalition. They're here before you tonight. Their conditional use permit request is to operate a cold weather shelter. Back in July, you had in front of you, let me back up a little bit. The location site is the same as you considered a couple months back in July whenever they were before you and got permission to operate a drop-in center for homeless individuals to come there for various social assistance. After that approval, they approached staff about coming before us to operate the cold weather shelter. So anytime that the weather is forecast to be 35 degrees or colder, that would open up the ability for them to bring in homeless individuals and house them through the night at that same location, 14 South Main Street. Cottonwood City Council did approve an ordinance back in January addressing the cold weather shelter. It's previously been located and operated at the Ark on Willard Street. And that cold weather shelter, if this approval is granted, would move to this location at 14 South Main. The conditions and as the ordinance was written and approved by council was specifically for the cold weather shelter. It was not site specific. So those requirements that were applied previously when they were operating at Yes, the Ark, those same requirements would move to this address at 14 South Main. The fire department has determined, based on the size of the building, the ingress, egress, the facility available at this location, that there would be a room to accommodate 12 people at that location. During the night, the Homeless Coalition would be required to have somebody on staff during the entire, throughout the entire evening for security and to monitor the comings and goings. This is the building, 14 South Main. It's been renovated. The unit that is in question is at the rear of this complex, which is back in this location. The front of the building, as you would see it from Main Street. And that's all I have for you this evening. Raina Avalon with the Verde Valley Homeless Coalition is here this evening as well, if you have any questions for her. But if you have any questions for me, I'm available as well.
Okay. Commissioner Ford.
Are there going to be two separate facilities? Or are they going to be, is it going to be a drop-in during the day and a cold weather at night? I mean, one of the things I couldn't see was whether you're going to be occupying the whole building or separating the building into the two functions.
No, both the drop-in center and the cold weather shelter will be operated out of the same single unit back at the rear of this.
Okay, so it's just the
building.
back unit.
Correct. So they would be operating their, and correct me if I say anything wrong, Raina. They'd be operating their drop-in center as they got their approval for a few months back. The cold weather shelter would only come into force whenever the temperature is forecast to be 35 degrees or lower. So at the same location, they would work out who was going to be there to act as security and supervision.
Okay,
All in
thank
one
you.
unit.
Commissioner Hart, I apologize. Not Commissioner Ford, Commissioner Hart. Robert.
All right.
Commissioner Dell.
I don't have anything. Nothing for me, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I had two questions. When we improved it, I think it was a few months ago, was that for a year or was that permanent? I thought there was some restriction on time, and how does that relate to this particular application now?
The conditional use permit did not have a time
Okay.
frame on it, nor as would this not have a time frame specifically.
Okay. The other question I have, I guess, would be for the representative from the coalition.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll introduce Raina Avalon.
Yes.
Sure.
If you'll give us your name, please, for the record.
Raina Avalon
Thank you.
is my name.
Yes, good. Thank you.
Yeah, our intention is to only have the overnight when the temperature is forecasted. We use a 48-hour window. So 2 days in advance, we look at the forecast. If it's forecasted to be 35 or below, then we make a determination to open that night. And we're looking for sort of a 24-hour conditional use permit in case we want to ever open on a Saturday, or say we decide to open on some, the weekends, 1 to 5. We don't have to go through this process every time we change our hours. But we would only be 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. when it's below in emergency situations.
Yeah. The other question I had, Ms. Avalon, is there any accommodation for pets? This
We do
location?
allow pets,
Okay, and they would be inside?
yes.
Okay.
They have to be on a leash with their owner at all times. They can't be running around. They have to be
Right.
restrained.
What happens in the summertime now when it's 110 degrees out?
Well, we
Would this,
haven't approached that yet.
So you
We
would?
haven't, we're not asking for that at this time.
Oh, okay.
We're just asking for the 35 and
Just for
below.
cold, yeah.
Because when it's freezing, I mean, we have laws that dogs can't be out in the freezing cold, but yet humans, it seems okay. So we just want to shelter them to keep them from freezing.
Mr. Dowling, any questions?
Nope.
Zero? Mr. Hart?
No, she's asking the question.
Mr. Dowling?
I'm just curious, how many people you had use the shelter when it was at Yes the Ark on an average?
0.
Zero, nothing.
I think it's too far out.
Okay.
Which is why we are considering this location, because everyone knows where it is. And as of Friday, we've served 160 unduplicated individuals that have come in for services, totally different. So the word's out that we're there. And yes, the Ark, it's so far out for them to go.
My only concern was it was only going to accommodate 12, but if you didn't have any.
Right, we could accommodate 20 at Yes, the Ark.
So if,
So it's less people, but it's more access. Like we had to wait that out.
so if you had a referral from public safety, such as fire, they found somebody sleeping under something and said, hey, would you like a warm place to go? You would accept them if they were open, if you were open under 35 degrees, right?
And if we didn't have people already in there, we were not to exceed the limit set by the fire department. And we have 3 pages of guidelines from the fire department that they set when the city council passed the ordinance. So we have all kinds of fire safety. We do half-hour fire watches, and there are 2 awake people all night long.
Vice Chairman?
I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions either. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I don't have any slips from the public to speak on this issue, so I'm going to close the floor. Commissioner Hart, you want to comments or
I have no additional
no
comments.
comments?
I have no additional comments.
No comments.
Comments, Vice Chairman? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion, Vice Chairman, please.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve PCU 18-007, Verde Valley Homeless Coalition Cold Weather Shelter with the stipulations as outlined in our packet. Those being, 1, the project is developed in conformance with the development plan submitted for the November 19th, 2018 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. 2, the project conforms to the Code Review Board comments dated October 26, 2018. 3, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of conditions shall be issued prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy. 4, cold weather homeless shelter shall operate within the requirements of Ordinance 637, including Exhibit A.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Mr. Dowell seconds the Vice Chairman's motion. All in favor, we'll take a roll call vote. Amber?
Commissioner Hart,
Aye.
Commissioner Dowell,
Aye.
Commissioner Dowling,
Aye.
Commissioner Narwood,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Wasden,
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye. Unanimously carried. Thank you, ladies, for all your good work and good luck. We appreciate your efforts. Okay, next item on our agenda is PCU 18008, residents in a C1 zone. I think Mr. Hedge is going to handle that one as well.
He's on hold.
Yeah.
Good evening again. This conditional use permit request is for a single-family residence to be located in a C1 light commercial zoning district. The C1 code requirements do allow a residence to be located in a commercial zone as long as they can get a conditional use permit approval. This location is just one block off of Main Street in between Ash and Aspen, and it fronts on 15th Street. To give you a little idea, this is the Dairy Queen project that we recently considered right here. So this is just around the corner from where that location would be. The floor plan would be a single-family structure. As I said, a conditional use permit is required for a single-family residence in a commercial zone. The parcel is approximately 12,000 square feet. When you combine the house, the little storage shed, covers approximately 11% of the parcel. The surrounding properties are a mix of single-family residence, some commercial, some mobile homes in the area as well. The property all to the east behind it, facing Main Street, is all commercial. This strip of property facing 15th Street is also commercial, and then across 15th Street goes to the R1 zoning. There are a lot of existing single-family residents that have been developed over the past decades, so it is sort of a mix of commercial and residential uses. This is the floor plan proposed by the applicant, Doug Brawley. A couple of building elevations, color doesn't really represent real well that sort of blue color in actuality. And then this would be the front, as you would see from 15th Street, and then this is what would be seen actually from the alley behind the property. His access would be off of 15th Street with RV parking, and this is a public right-of-way alley back here, so he does have legal access as well to the alley. This is a photograph of the subject parcel. Looking to the east, this is the commercial buildings fronting on Main. Property adjacent to the south and to the north is a single-family residence. Across 15th Street is also a single-family residence. And then this is standing in the alley directly behind the subject site, looking towards Main Street. Looking south on 15th Street and north on 15th Street from standing, both of those are standing in front of the property. So with that, that's all I have to say. Doug Brawley is here this evening if you have any questions for him as well.
Commissioner Norwood, do you have any questions of Jim?
No questions.
Commissioner Dowling?
None for me.
Mr. Hart?
None.
No?
Yes, sir.
Jim, no, thank you.
Okay.
Is the applicant here, Mr. Brawley? Would you like to come step forward, please? And would you state your name for the record, please?
My name's Doug Brawley.
Okay, thank you. I think it's pretty well explained what you're going to be living on this property, or?
Yes.
Okay, this is for your house?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Hart, do you have any questions of the applicant?
Not any questions.
No?
No, sir.
Any questions?
No, I will comment that I feel what you're doing. I was trying to find a house here for a long time, and a nice piece of vacant property is a beautiful thing, so. Infill is where it's at.
No question.
Mr. Ryer, I think yeah, right. I think, I don't have any further questions. I think it's pretty well laid out.
I
Comments?
do have a question for
Yeah,
the
yes.
commission members. If the use is granted, is it to be permanent for the applicant? That's one question. The other is, can the granted use be transferred if ownership changes?
That's a legal question. As far as I understand, it would be for
Yeah, it
you.
runs with the land.
It runs with the
So it
land.
runs with
Yes.
the-
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, and it would be permanent.
I have plans.
They'd have to do
stay
for this
there,
use,
I
but
just-
yeah, if it changed though, we'd have to come back. If it's modified, it would have to come back for us, okay? Okay, very
That's all
good.
I have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
I don't have any slips from the public for comments, so I'm gonna close the floor. You can be seated. Thank you, sir. Comments?
I think, I like the idea of using the in and out driveway. I think that's a really excellent way of cutting down on helping with traffic, so you're not backing out on the street. I think the elevations are pleasant, the excellent choice of colors. I think it'll be a nice addition to the neighborhood.
Mr. Dillon, comments?
No comments, no, sir.
Commissioner,
No comment.
further comments?
No, I think it's a great, nice house and good neighborhood. Glad to see some new development going in there too.
Yes.
And you got a quality builder, I hear, to build it, so.
I really second those comments, and being an infill, I really like these lots, these vacant lots going in and building on these. That's going to help our city. We've got a lot of vacant lots and others that could be redeveloped, and good luck to you. And so with that, I'll ask for a motion, Vice Chairman, and a second.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve PCU 18-008, residents in a C1 zone with the stipulations outlined by staff. One, that the project conforms to code reviewed board comments dated October 26, 2018. Two, that the project conform to the plans as submitted for review by the Planning Commission for the November 19, 2018 public hearing. Three, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of conditions shall be issued prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we had a tie. Commissioner Dowling
Arm
seconds the Vice
wrestle.
Chairman's motion.
Oh,
Oh, you through?
I thought we settled that by arm wrestling.
Rochambeau.
Right. Roll call vote, please, Amber.
Commissioner Hart,
Aye.
Commissioner Dowell,
Aye.
Commissioner Dowling,
Aye.
Commissioner Narwood,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Wasden,
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye. Unanimously carried. Good luck, sir. Thank you for coming. Our next agenda item is DR 18010, Dunkin' Donuts, for design review for a drive-in through restaurant and retail building at 100 South Main Street. Mr. Ellis, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission, good evening. DR 18-010 Dunkin' Donuts at 1006 South Main Street. C2 zone property is currently vacant. It's just west of the State Route 89A and 260 intersection. This property here. We're looking for design review approval to construct a 3,300 square foot shell building. It's gonna house an 1,800 square foot Dunkin' Donuts and about 1,500 square feet for retail space. Be one building, two separate units. It's gonna be a drive-through Dunkin' Donuts. They have the one frontage on State Route 89A, also Main Street. Depends on who you talk to on if it's 89A or Main Street. No new access drives will be installed. They will use the existing ones right there by the property. That's the closest access there. It is right in, right out only. They can also access off of State Route 260 into that shared easement coming in where Home Depot is. and then any other ways you can get in there behind the shopping center, all the way over by Fry's, those places. They will have 3 access drives into their property off the easement. 2 of them will be for parking, 1 will be for the drive-through. Just gonna wrap around the building, be adjacent to 89A. They will have a low landscaping wall and shrubbery along there to help mitigate headlight issues with traffic at night. They're required to have a minimum of 26 parking spaces. That's how many they will provide. They can have up to 10% of them as compact, and they're going to have 3 of those. We round up when there's an odd number, it's more than half, so they can have up to 3 as compact. That's what they're gonna propose there. It's gonna be in that central area. I'll show you on the site plan there. There's no ADOT requirements for any traffic mitigation. The only thing ADOT is going to require, if it happens, is drainage requirements. If they want to tie into their box culvert, they have off-site drainage onto ADOT right away. They have to meet those requirements, but ADOT's not requiring any traffic mitigation at all. There's the site plan. As I mentioned, the drive-through is coming through like this, around adjacent to 89A. Landscaping buffer here along the frontage with a screen wall as well. Landscaping on building edge here, over here. Here's our 3 entrances off the easement. One's that's coming in here for the most parking stalls accessing the retail and the Dunkin' Donuts. Here's where they're gonna have several more parking with the compact spaces. The west and the south elevations, the east and the north elevation. The north elevations, which you're going to see from Main Street, 89A. See street rendering view and another street view off of Main Street. And that's a representation of the wall that they're going to have. You see it's a little staggered there with gaps in between. That's the site as it sits currently. As I mentioned, it is vacant. That's off the easement there, looking kind of to the east, northeast a little bit. It's another view of the site. That's looking from the adjacent property. That's from the easement, access easement. It's surrounded by other heavier uses, whether it's PAD, C2, restaurants, retail stores, Home Depot's right to the west, southwest of them. We've got various retail next to them here to the west. A little better shot of what's in there. That's a view of the easement looking to the south. The other access way is over here. That's to the north across 89A. Another view. Just looking at the easement, we'll come around here and access their property here and over here, and then the drive-throughs back behind here. That's the entrance, right turn, right in, right out off 89A. I was looking to the east on 89A, to the west, and then that's the access that could potentially be off of State Route 260. The applicant is here to answer other questions. I can answer any questions you may have. Turn it back over to you.
Mr. Hart, just questions of Scott.
Not for Scott.
Okay, Commissioner Dow?
No, sir.
Commissioner?
Yeah, I do have a question. I'm really confused by this plan in one respect. I see how the drive-through goes in, and, okay, the people who drive in there. But it looks flawed in that there's another ingress and egress, I think. If it isn't, then it's really flawed. Because you're showing 3 parking places in the area where people will come in and come out. if those parking places are filled, the only way to get out of that site would be to go against traffic, the opposite direction, to go out where they're showing them to come in.
On which part? Up here?
No, down below, at the bottom,
Over here?
yeah. Because, I mean, if that's not an in and out, which it looks like it is, right?
Yes.
So what if those spaces are filled? How do people get into, there doesn't seem to be, how would they get out?
That's a question that I can turn over to the applicant.
Right, I think, your entrance is down here at the right-hand side. You got your laser marker.
This
Use
one.
the-
Yeah, that's your entrance into the drive-through.
That's the drive-through entrance.
And you come on through, but you go through the drive-through, you come on out,
Like
and you
that.
come back out, you go out through there. There's
Correct.
nothing to do with those little spaces. in
This
front.
right here is a separate,
That's a separate little parking
Separate.
area.
Separate parking.
5 spaces.
Okay, it just wasn't marked as out, because I took that as,
yeah, this right here itself is its own entrance exit.
okay, I got it. No problem.
Mr. Dowling, any questions, Scott?
Not really, no.
Vice Chairman Scott?
Just in terms, I know the packet talks about signage, that's gonna come back, so what discussion have you had about the signs?
We haven't seen any proposals for signage,
Okay,
not for this particular project.
okay.
Any other question?
Nope.
When we approved or had the consideration of Dunkin' Donuts, it seemed like they were gonna modify that easement somewhat. Is that further on by their property where the modification's gonna be? Or I mean Starbucks, I'm sorry.
You mean,
That easement
Over
comes
here?
off of Main Street and it wraps around. They said they were gonna modify that a little bit, is that?
I think over here, they're going to narrow it down a little bit.
All right, but it's off this property.
Correct.
This is gonna stay the same as what's there, as far as you know? That's-
Correct.
Okay. That's the only question I had.
Okay.
Okay, the applicant's representative, please. Yes, sir, if you'll come forward and please tell us your name for the record.
My name is Chris Cooper.
Okay, Chris.
Good evening.
Okay, you want to tell us a little bit more about the project? Or-
Just to clarify, and it was explained very well, but Scott and I, during the planning phase of this, that particular location of the 5 stalls is a right-in, right-out only. So that sort of will alleviate any problems getting in now that the spaces where you were talking. So other than that, he presented everything. I'm open to any questions if anyone has any. Otherwise, I appreciate it.
All right, very good. Commissioner Hart, you want to start us off?
For the 5s that we were just talking about, are you planning on having those more oriented as employee parking?
They will probably end up being more of the employee parking. There is no cross parking rate in this location with Home Depot. So those are the 3 compact stalls, 2 standard stalls on the right. I would assume that they'll end up being more of the employee parking.
Because, I mean, I was looking at it from the standpoint of if you're going to have people pulling in and out of there, that's a really uncomfortable.
And that's why we did a right
Situation.
in, right out as well.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a pretty tight spot.
Did you look at trying to find someplace other than right at your entrance for the trash
The trash
enclosure?
Yeah. We went back and forth. We actually had it on the exact opposite section. And that was not, it laid out very well, but it was not allowed up there. So we moved it down to where you see it today.
By the waste management folks?
I believe so.
Was that a problem
No,
with
it
waste
was
management?
staff requirements. It can't be visible from the street. It was
Oh,
positioned too
oh,
close to
okay.
be seen
Oh,
from the
alright.
street. So we had to move it down, given the site and the layout of the site. That's the best possible use for it, or location for it. Staff did work with the applicant on that.
Okay, and then in terms of the representation, gentleman next to me reminded me that when you're looking at side elevation B, That doesn't seem to be an accurate representation of how the building would look.
One slide back.
Can we go to the rendering? So that's what the building will be.
Not that one.
The one that's the
Yeah.
blank walls.
The
The
blank
south
walls.
elevation,
It says side elevation, B,
Below it. What is it?
on EL1.
Which one is that one?
Elevated
No.
north.
One more.
there you go.
Oh, that elevation, okay, that
Yes.
elevation is, the side yeah, that would be the side
I
this
mean,
is
shouldn't
Dunkin'.
the lower part be going across?
It still doesn't.
And you see the higher parapet in the background, and there should be another 4 foot or so of building extending beyond that.
It might not show the portion of the building beyond, but that is the corner of the retail tenant.
Because when you look at front elevation west, the one is lower. Well, I mean, you have the building to the right is lower. So
Correct.
you should see that going all the way across.
Yeah, the parapets beyond are probably not represented accurately, but
can see
those
it.
are windows that are on this side of the, if you're looking at the front elevation, that side, those windows wrap the corner and here, and then we change the materials on the vertical element on the front, so it changes from the metal panel to the brick, and then that is the side elevation of the retail tenant.
I don't think so. I mean, when you look at front elevation, it's lower. I mean, the low part should go all the way, on the side elevation, the lower part should go all the way across.
Okay, so this element right here
Yeah,
is on this side, so that brick carries around. And what you're saying is this parapet element would be seen over on this elevation.
well, no, what I'm saying is that the right parapet
This,
should be seen going all the way across.
I'm not sure I understand. This is the front, this is the one side? If we go back to the,
Look, yeah, well, look at your building plan,
here?
your building plan.
Oh, here, okay. So
Okay.
those windows are right here.
Yeah, yes, there are windows there, but according to the front elevation, that's a lower parapet. The lower parapet that you see with the lighter tan,
This,
yeah, that should
this
be.
height right here is the same height as that.
Yes,
Steps
exactly.
up.
No, exactly.
Mhm.
And so according to your plan.
I mean, I'm sorry, no, you're right. This height is that height. We step up on the Dunkin'.
That's
component.
correct.
Yeah.
So, according to your building plan, what should be happening is that lower parapet should be going all the way across.
This elevation right here,
Yeah, you should be seeing, I mean, when you look at your plan, you see the larger build,
see this height, there's 3 heights on the building, so
Uh-huh.
it looks a little different. We turn the corner, and so this height right here is the
Yes.
same height as that.
It's just not showing the building beyond.
Yeah.
Correct.
The parapet beyond and above is
Right.
not being
Yeah.
illustrated in that elevation.
Yeah, you can't see up over that to see the Dunkin' Donut part.
So as the building goes back here, so this is one height, then it drops down.
Yes.
These drop down, drops down
okay?
again.
And that drop down should be showing all the way across on that side elevation.
See, it drops again. And then as we go around the back, which is that corner, that's the same height, then we step back up to the Dunkin' component as we turn the other corner, and this is the drive-through, and then back down and back up again.
Okay.
I think I could probably help with this really quick. Let me see if I can figure this one out. You're looking at the elevation of that one. Go back to the one yours on. Where we at? Okay. You're looking this way. You can't see through this to see the far parapet. So you're only gonna be able to see this, that's why you can't see that far piece up here, because the point of view is down here, and you're not looking through the building to see the above parapet that's standing out higher than you're expecting it to
If you go to the roof view again,
be. Yeah.
just square out what you're talking about.
Yeah, so this is one height, okay?
That's the highest point
That's,
of the
this
building.
corner is the highest point,
Right.
correct? And then the retail component, we drop down. We stay at the same height until we reach half the point here, and then we step again. And then.
Oh, okay,
wait,
so you've got another step.
correct, yeah. And then we keep that height, and then we step down again in just this small portion, or sorry, that stays the
Stays
same.
the same.
Then it goes back up, then we turn the corner, same height, then we step back down, and then back up again. The drive-through pop is lower. So as you see the elevations, see how it goes up and down right here?
Yes, I
This
see
is
that.
popping out at us, but it's a lower element.
Yeah.
And everything on the roof is fully
Right.
screened, so,
Okay.
okay? It's a little confusing, I apologize.
No, it can be with all those elevations.
You're right.
Mr. Hart, any other
Um,
questions?
one other question, well, sort of, you might want to reconsider the use of the Russian sage. When winter hits around here, they get ugly. They're beautiful when they're blooming. But when winter hits around here, or they just dry up and,
We don't have any problem if we want to change any of the landscaping. No, I don't
well, no,
have
I'm
any
just
issue
saying
with
you
that.
might want to
Yeah.
take a, you might want to have your,
Landscape
your
architect.
landscape
take a look at
architect take another look at
that.
that.
Yeah, okay,
Just from a maintenance standpoint.
yeah.
Mr. Dell, any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Norwood, any questions of the applicant?
No questions.
Mr. Dowling, any questions of the applicant?
None here.
Vice Chairman?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. One is, in terms of, you know, you're kind of clarifying the elevations. I did want to point out, just for consistency, that the depictions do not properly show the building as planned. And I think that's important to point out because it provides much more of a, there's not a lot of room. In fact, there's no landscaping that's taking place in front of that building. But your depiction shows a much wider patio and even shows an island of landscaping there that's not
This
going to be
element
there.
here.
That's a much more generous piece of.
Yeah,
and
we had, and you're right. When we modified the site to fit in those extra spaces with that third, well, let me back up. Originally, we had a third tenant on this building. And based on the parking provided and you know, whatnot, we couldn't make that work. So, yeah, the rendering, this building was shifted forward.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I believe it's like 10 feet, but we still would like to have this fireplace element out there on the patio.
And I think that's a nice element. I
Yeah.
think, though, when you look at this, it's such a real-life visual, but it's not that visual. That's a little bit too generous to what is there, and I want to
This
be
portion is
accurate.
right here.
Yeah, and the landscaping on the right there, that's not there either.
That's
Those
right.
trees,
Yeah.
that's curved to the building, and I
Correct.
think the corner's 4 feet in, so it's about 6
It's a
to
little
8
tighter.
feet from, yeah, it's very close in there.
Yeah.
The other, you know, we spent a lot of time with Starbucks, and this is a predominant corner that comes into the city. They are putting in a wall as well that comes down 260 and wraps around, and we don't have, I wish we had that visual where we could bring these properties together. It's almost like we're doing these in isolation, yet this is a prominent corner in town. And I would like to see the continuity of that fence that they're doing, that wall, continue around instead of stop at their property, which what they're planning on doing is using, it's a very similar wall. It's stuccoed, but it's got river rock columns called out into it.
Okay.
I'd like to see us continue that instead of come around, stop midway through property, and then your wall. And I think you have a fine-looking wall, but I think for that property and for that corner in particular, I think we need something uniform that brings that corner together, not separate it by vendors, so to speak. So that's one thing that I would like to see us do and combine that effort. River rock in particular, because we use a lot of river rock, and just because that is a prominent corner. So I'd like to talk more about and see what we can do to make that happen.
I don't think we'll have any issues with that. The reason we did this, honestly, was to give it a little bit more element of a design. We wanted to, they're staggering, but they're overlapping, so nothing will go through. And at the time when I designed this, I did not know what was going on over here on the Starbucks property. So, you know, I thought it was a nice creative way sort of how to handle that wall.
By itself, I agree with you. I really like it, but I think that's why we're kind of doing these separate, and this really is, from the general public's point of view, this is a piece of property, and that, I think continuity as you come into our community, I think that's important. Most of us round that corner several times a day, and I think it'd be nice to see that continue around.
You know, we would not have any issue with that.
Okay.
Is that something that the commission would and work with the planners in terms of a design, or is that something, I don't know how we want.
I think we can stipulate that and then leave staff up to coordinate those details and make sure that that's you guys can work together on that. The other question I had was just on that small parking lot, why is that right in, right out only? It's such a quirky piece. It almost, it's so small, it seems like the right in, right out almost makes it more restrictive.
Well, when we looked at that, and that comment came, I think, from transportation. And they wanted the driveways minimum 20 feet apart, which we have. And they had suggested that maybe a right in, right out would be better for the traffic flow. So we wanted to accommodate that, and that's why we have it. Originally, we didn't have that, but you know, with the traffic coming this way, and this is a right in, right out, so.
Right. I think you're going to have a whole lot of traffic coming in here, and I think they're not going to access. That's going to be like, I think, a point of pain for you guys, because people are going to run right over that pork chop just to, because it's going to be hard to right in, right out. The other comment I had, and because this is a prominent corner, I don't know how I feel about that big display. I know you've got your checkerboard of colors, and again, we don't have the benefit. It's almost from that side. I think that's nice. I'd rather see materials instead of paint used, but it's that backside, and that's where I don't know. We're trying to do these separately, but where does the Starbucks building, how much of the Starbucks building, if at all, will cut out some of that? Because in my mind, that's such a large exposure of that design that it's almost, I know it's branding, and in other buildings, Kentucky Fried Chicken, that's something that we limit. So I know that's up for comment later, but I don't know what other options.
Building is like right in this area. There's their, I'm not sure what, some pop-outs on their building or something, but you know, obviously the drive-through here.
Right,
so
drive-through.
I want to say that they might be tucked up tighter here. I'm not sure, but it's a long, narrow building.
Yeah.
That element, excuse me, is here to there.
Yeah.
And it is a brand element in terms of the colors. The materials I chose were something a little bit more unique instead of just, you know, your standard, you know, typical lap siding, because that is sort of a normal Dunkin prototype design element, but they do give you the freedom to change materials if you want. So those materials are metal shingles, and they're really a nice product. They overlap each other, and I wanted to give that element of, you know, the natural coffee, because they're gradated panels, and that is typically what Dunkin does. They have a big tower element, and we didn't really want to do that here. So that's the material that I chose for the back portion and the side portion of that.
So those aren't, those are actually, there's a relief to.
There's a relief to it,
okay.
yes.
I couldn't gather that. It looked more like a a paint scheme.
No,
That's
it's not
what I,
paint.
okay.
They're
yeah.
they're really nice material.
I like the color,
Yeah.
it's just, and calling that out with some relief, I agree, is kind of what I'm looking for, a little bit more
Yeah.
material. And I didn't see any detail on the trash container, I didn't know what that surround is that block or?
Well, right now, we're showing it, I think we have full brick to match the brick that's on the building.
Okay,
I think one of the stipulations that we talked about originally in our planning meetings were, it has to match the building. So we don't have any issue. We'd rather not have it just painted stucco, even because it is up front. We're not into CDs yet, but if it's a stipulation where this needs to be full brick, there's no issue with that.
okay, I'd probably say that would be my leaning to, in keeping with what we've done before. And the other is just kind of a nitpick, it's at that south elevation again, and it's, so that side right there, I guess you're calling the retail side, yeah, that, it just seems like you lose a little bit on the building, especially now I know you've got those panels are relieved and staggered, that is, and that's gonna be your main entrance. That might not be your main visual entrance, but something you could do to break up or visually make that, because otherwise it's cars, there's no landscaping in front of it, and it just seems like a beige wall.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's something below you could do, some skirting around the bottom to even on the other elements that matches the building to.
Well, we could, we don't really have access, that's our access point, so I was gonna say we could eliminate some of the sidewalk and plant material there. We were focusing more on this element to be, because it's the main visual
Yeah,
that you see. This element, not that it's any less important, this is,
right.
you know, but, I mean, I'm sure there's something we could come up with, you know, this will have signage on it at some point. For the
Right.
tenant. We could maybe add some eyebrows or something over
Or
there.
I think the front, the corner's fine, it's more the beige part where you've got the third kind of call out from the top, maybe if there was something that even came up from the bottom, or I don't know,
Yeah.
something that broke that up. It just seems like you went from nice brick to,
This area here,
yeah, to an,
wainscoting or something,
yeah,
carry it around.
yeah,
Okay,
so,
that's not a problem.
yeah.
We could certainly maybe just extend the brick if you wanted. If you
I
like
think that would
material.
look great, because
Yeah.
I like the brick that you've got in there,
Yeah,
so
okay.
I think it just add, you're doing a nice job on the building, it just would complement already what
Okay,
you've got
yeah.
planned. All right, I'll give somebody else.
I don't have any questions. I think they've been answered pretty much with the particularly access in that wall. I think
Yeah.
we'll second our comments. That
Okay.
if there's any possibility, we'd like to see that continuation of that
Sure.
wall
Yeah,
at that
understand.
corner. If that seems like that should be workable for you.
Yeah, there's no
All
issue
right.
there.
All right. The other stipulations that were outlined,
Bob,
there's just a few. Yes.
I have some questions.
Oh, you have some questions?
Oh, yeah, you did.
Oh, I skipped over you?
Yeah.
I am sorry, sir. Well, okay, we'll go on to you. Yes, Commissioner Norwood, sorry.
Is this the retail space, sir?
No, that is actually that would be the back of the house of the Dunkin' Donuts part. So that element is this portion right here. You're looking at that wall. That's where basically the kitchen is.
Okay,
So
so,
that elevation is, you're seeing from this corner are those panels, then the pop-out element for the drive-through, and then the corner element, which is the dining area, this portion here.
okay. My question is it possible for you to utilize those colored panels, but use a lot less of them? Design it such that you're not covering the entire wall, but perhaps design it in a way that you don't have to have the entire wall, all of those different colors. Still use them, but do it in a way that doesn't look quite like that. Is that possible?
I'm sure it is. My logic behind this was one element, another element, and then another element, and then they're all tied together with different colors, so.
Well, how about putting them in the middle and not doing the far left that way, or just maybe doing something
Break
really
it up or
different?
something?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a little overpowering, and I think it's really, I don't really think it looks that nice, to be honest with you. I think the building would look a lot better
Yeah.
if there wasn't so much of that. And I believe, sincerely believe, that you could redesign that and come up with a much more attractive siding and yet accomplish what you want to do and have it visually more pleasing to the residents of town.
Mm.
I can't tell you how to do it,
Yeah.
but if I saw several renderings, I think I could choose one that would look better than that. I'm sure you can come up, I know that's a corporate thing, but I'm thinking that way.
You know, the material that we're using really is really a nice material. I know that this doesn't really give you the
Here's my
factor of
answer,
what-
here's my answer to that. It's real nice if you get up real close, but nobody's gonna get up real close and look at it and hold them in their hand. They're gonna look at it from a distance, and from a distance, you're not gonna see the dimension that you said that they have, which I really don't understand what you meant by that, unless they're all different heights. I
They
know.
don't pop out at different heights, but you definitely will get that shadow effect from far away on these panels. So, you know, back to your point, because we didn't want to get a visual from far away and going, oh, all they did is paint the building different squares, you know,
You see, we always wrestle here on the board with whether or not a design is an extension of a sign. And it's kind of your logo kind of thing, and that's one thing, but I just think you could redesign it a little bit more pleasing than having that enormous wall of all those colors. It's, that's my feeling.
What's
Okay.
the relief distance
the
on,
relief on these panels is probably 3/4 inches,
Okay.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
We don't, I know you showed the colors, but there's really not any of those tiles in there. 'Cause
Yeah.
Initially, I'm that same opinion. It looks like it's a paint scheme.
Right.
And on that corner in particular, but I think choosing the right materials, and I think with that staggering, it does give it it changes that, for me anyway, to more of a,
We can certainly show you this product on different buildings in that same, you know, type of application, and it will show you the relief of what we're trying to achieve as well. It's not to this extent, but there is a photo that I could show you that has the different colors and the shadow effect of that, and I can certainly provide that.
Okay, any other questions, Mr. Norwood? Questions?
Did you have any more questions?
No.
Okay,
I'm done.
Commissioner Dowling, any questions to the applicant? Okay, I'm all set. Thank you, sir,
Okay,
very
thank
much.
you. Appreciate it.
We appreciate you coming. I don't have any slips from the remarks from the public, so I'll close the floor to the public. And Commissioner Hart, comments, please. And
Well, I agree with the other commissioners about the checkerboard being really an impressive element. I mean, it's just a big block of busyness. Maybe trying to find some way to break it up, I think would be a good idea. One thing that I had a problem with on the elevations was on the, well, if they're going to do something like the DD, that was a really huge block of just nothing on the elevation. If they're gonna come back with some signage there, I think that'll help. I think my other issues have been dealt with.
done with. Commissioner Dowling, comments, sir?
I don't have any, sir.
Commissioner Norwood, you've Any other comments? Generally, you answered,
Yeah,
you put forth your comment about the
That's it.
redesign, okay. Commissioner, I think the wall, since we've talked about that, I'm glad you clarified that checkered wall, because I had some really concerns about that as well. Do the conditions as set forth otherwise agreeable to you? Okay, real fine. I think other than my hearing is a stipulation for the wall construction. Do you have any other?
I like the project. I'm gonna say it again because I think there is the potential here with great retailers that are coming into that corner, which as a community, I think we appreciate, but I think the piece of ingress egress is going to be a problem that we're gonna have to deal with. That's out of our hands, but basically with the Starbucks project, we created a better way to get people in. I don't think we needed that. We needed a better way to get people out, and I think you're gonna be very successful there, and I worry about what that means for everybody else that's going to that busy corner to get out, and I think ADOT's gonna have to revisit that at some point. But I like the project, and I appreciate the clarification on the paneling. And yeah, I think with what you're mentioning in terms of the wall and maybe some of those other design elements that breaking up that, I think, and the other stipulation besides the wall was just the trash container, that it would be brick to match the building that you guys have already discussed. So.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion then, sir. Let you put.
I move that we approve DR 18-010 Dunkin' Donuts with the following stipulations outlined in the packet. That the project is developed in conformance with the development plan submitted for the November 19th, 2018 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and as may be further modified. 2, the project conforms to code review board comments dated April 20th, 2018, and all subsequent review comments provided throughout the development of this project. 3, all Arizona Department of Transportation requirements are met prior to issuance of building permits. 4, building permits shall be applied for by 12 months from the date of approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. 5, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of the design and review board's stipulation shall be issued prior to the certificate of occupancy. 6, continuality, am I saying that right? Continuation of design and materials for wall to match Starbucks wall on building perimeter. Does that clarify that enough? Continuity is what I was looking for.
Right. Okay.
And 7 would be stipulation for a trash container to be constructed of the same brick material used in the building.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Hart seconds the Vice Chairman's motion. I'll have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hart,
Aye.
Commissioner Dowell,
Aye.
Commissioner Dowling,
Aye.
Commissioner Narwood,
No.
Vice Chairman Wasden,
Yes.
Chairman Williams.
Aye. Motion carried, 5-1. Good luck. Congratulations. Thank you. We're looking forward to it. Our next item on the agenda is going to be DR 18013 Pinnacle Consulting Wireless Communication Facility. And if I may interrupt you just for a second, I want to confer with the Vice Chairman on this. When you get the stipulations, I left out this first one. Okay, sir, you've got the floor, Mr. Bennett.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. This is a design review application from Pinnacle Consulting to locate a 60-foot cell tower located on Main Street, 89A, close to the intersection with Camino Real. The project you were just talking about, Dunkin' Donuts, is right here, so this is just up the street a little bit. The site is a 2-acre site. They're proposing a 60-foot cell tower, which the design that they've chosen to camouflage is to call it a mono elm, which is basically an elm tree. I'll be some pictures here in a minute to camouflage the cell part. Anything over 60 feet would be required to go to planning, to the city council for their approval. 60 feet and lower does go to planning commission with design review. So that's where, and I did put a little note in your packet that you might see a reference to 65 feet early on. There was some discussion of 65 feet, but the ultimate height of this tower would be 60 feet. The subject site, being a 2-acre site, is large enough to accommodate, should the tower collapse, that the entire 60 feet would remain on that subject parcel and not extend across a road or onto an adjacent property. The mechanical equipment at the base of the tower would be enclosed by a 6-foot-high masonry wall. That would be the only structure located there. There is a little small sign identifying the facility itself, but not an advertising sign. Access to the site is from Highway 89 and Main Street. There's a small little jog that goes out here to Main Street, and then they would have their access up to where the tower would be located. This is a little bit blown up of where the 30 by 30 fenced wall would be, and this circumference right here would be the 60-foot diameter in the event of a collapse. Some pictures of the site looking to the west and looking to the east. This is the little, there's a motel located just over the hill. Some office complex also to the west. Looking north, this is the rear of a restaurant facing onto 89A. And an apartment complex also to the south. These representations, the top one is currently what is existing. The 60-foot mono-elm tower is superimposed then where it would be. That would be the ultimate view once it's constructed. Same thing looking, this is a representation from the gas station at the corner of 89 and Camino Real, looking to the west, and then here is where you would see the tower in that. Yeah, I think that's about all I had to say. There is one, I did want to talk about the co-locatable. Whenever the council was approving the cell tower ordinance, they recommended that any tower be able to be utilized by more than one cell provider. This one does have the ability to have 2 separate providers for this location. The first one would be the applicant, and then there would be ability for them to lease that to somebody else. So with that, that's all I have to say this evening. The applicant is here this evening. If you have any questions for them.
Commissioner Norwood, do you have any questions of Jim?
No, I don't think Jim, no, I haven't for the applicant.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good. Commissioner Dowell, of Jim?
None for Jim.
Okay, Commissioner Hart?
None.
None.
Vice Chairman? I don't have any questions for you. I think
Okay.
you've answered And the applicant is here. Okay.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Michelle Lamoureux. I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Commissioner Norwood, you want to start off?
Yeah, I was wondering, the longevity of the elm. To hang on. Who's responsible, Verizon's responsible for the maintenance?
So the tower is actually being built by a third party called Sun State Towers. And so that's essentially what does make it co-locatable, is that Sun State Towers owns and operates it. And we maintain it based on as it's needed to be. Typically these, it depends on the weather. Like down in the valley where it's really hot and sunny all the time, they switch out the branches about every 5 years. Up here, it might be 7 to 10. There's a crew that comes out about once every 60 to 90 days to see if any of the branches need replacing, limbs, leaves, whatever it may be. I mean, we want it to look nice as well, so. So they do come out and look at it and make sure that it's.
How often is there a frequency or an average time that some fall to the ground? Does that happen?
That the tower falls?
No.
That the branches? I'm not going to say that they never fall, but the goal is that they don't fall. So they are tested, so on a pretty regular basis.
Does your company own the tower over by the high school?
I don't think we do, no.
This would be the only tower in town?
So we do have one outside of town that Sun State owns, but it's just a monopole. It's not a stealth facility. So.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Dowling.
So as a touch of background, I was once on city council here.
Sure.
When we went through the great dilemma of cell towers.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, they're a necessary evil, as they say.
Yes.
In this day and age. My main concern over this is on one of the previous towers that went in, I feel kind of like, and I do have an example, but I'll make sure staff gets it and can get it to you guys. But many times, because I know that there are certain caveats that go in with putting in cell towers as far as we can't necessarily say no because of the federal regulations and all those fun things, but we can attempt to make it as nice as possible.
Absolutely.
I am very concerned that I know
not
we're
gonna
trying to
look like the
stealth that,
rendering.
but it looks like an upside down tree. You know, it's like you took your Christmas tree and stood it on end, and it's taller, it's wider at the top than at the bottom. So I would hope that it would. I mean, you know, all we can ask for is what the best we can do. But I know that on other ones that have been established here, I think it's the Diamond location off next to the slag pile, as an example. I did a informal review of that myself based upon some of the photos. Like, I compared what we were promised and what we were delivered, and it was significantly not even close. Like the coverage of the boughs going around the antenna was at like 50% of what the plan showed and said, here's what we're going to make for you. And when it got out there, it appeared to be half as big, literally like 50% the size, the sparseness, and it just ended up being like, why did we approve that? It is ugly. So I want to make sure that, you know, it'll probably get placed as a stipulation that, or I would request that at the very least, it matched the construction document we're provided. So that'll be my point of it.
So one of the things that with the elm that is a little bit different than a pine tree is that a lot of times with the pine trees, they end up looking like the really sad, you know, Snoopy ones, or,
Right.
you know, they're very scraggly, or they look like a toilet brush, or all of the other horrible ones that you have seen out there. So one of the things that we've tried to do with the elm is it's bushier, for lack of a better term, and they're actual leaves. So they're you know, RF compatible leaves. So you're able to make a much denser product than with a pine tree. You know, a lot of jurisdictions want the pine tree because they're like, oh, well, that looks more natural. But with a pine tree, in order to get an actual realistic looking pine tree, you have to stipulate, as the town, like, okay, well, I want to see at a minimum 4 branches per foot.
Right.
Well, then, when you start getting into the higher branch density, then it starts becoming an even costlier and costlier endeavor to build, the stealth facility to the point that it almost doesn't make it feasible for them to do it. So that's Larson Camouflage is who will be building this, and they're actually based out of Tucson. So we've worked pretty extensively with them to try to come up with something that's native to Arizona that has a bushier, denser look. We just finished one in Tucson that I can take a picture of and certainly send to you.
Sure.
That is alive, it's up, it's done, you can see that what it looks like. I'm more than happy to do that. I understand what you're saying.
Right.
I tend to probably take a little bit more ownership and pride in these because I think, okay, well, if I'm going to stand before you all and promise that it's not going to look horrible, then I actually want to deliver on that. So, so yeah, we do try really hard to make sure that they don't look horrible. I get it. They are a necessary evil, but, half the time I almost feel like if it's just the pole, it would look better because who are you fooling with it being a fake tree? But that's a whole other conversation.
Sure.
So.
Any other questions?
I'm all set with
Before
that.
we moved on, Commissioner Howard, you had another further
Follow-up.
question?
Is it fatter at the top because that's where the junk is?
Yes, the antennas are located at the top.
Technically,
So,
technically speaking.
the technical term.
Yes.
So, I mean, yeah, you have to cover it, so that's,
Sure.
that's.
Right, and the antennas actually have, the leaves are on the antennas as well. So it's not just painted.
Yes.
Like a lot of antennas on previous trees that have gone up, they'll do a stealth, pine tree, but then they just throw the antennas on there and they paint them green.
All right.
So these actually, they have what they're called socks.
All right, well, you take care of our tree then.
Okay.
Commissioner Hart.
I think my questions have been
Okay.
answered.
Commissioner Dale?
I don't have any questions. I just want to go on the record that, so I don't get any complaints personally, I like the Snoopy tree.
Vice Chairman.
I dislike the Snoopy tree because along with Jesse, what they presented was, wow, okay, this could look good. And our kids play soccer over there, and every time I'm looking at that and I'm like, this is so shabby.
Right.
Would it be possible to make this blend in? And I appreciate that. The elm does have somewhat of a shape like that. It is, so I like that there are leaves. Just to make it more realistic, would like the maintenance crew be able to come up in October and put colored leaves on them so it did blend better?
Well, I mean, if the property owner wants to decorate,
Yeah.
hey, we're not opposed.
On a serious note, I wanted to see about the base. I know it's masonry block.
The fence around.
Yeah, if that can be a block that is, it's a dyed block, it's a brown block, so that there's
Sure.
no paint maintenance to it, it'd go a long way in making that disappear completely. And so if you're okay, I'd like to see a stipulation for that, just because I think it's a nicer way to do it.
Absolutely.
How many carriers can you accommodate on that tower?
So it actually is constructed for 3.
For 3.
However, at this height and due to the buildings around it, we feel that 2 for sure will go on it. The possibility of a 3rd one would be at a pretty low center line. So
Continuing our ridiculous comments, I guess the leaves aren't going to fall off in the winter?
they're not.
Good.
I mean, I certainly can bring you a sample of colors, and you can choose whatever color green you would like.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Again, I have no sheet for the public on comment who want to address us. So I'll close the floor and start our comments with Commissioner Hart.
I think they've done about, You know, if it looks like that, I think they've done about the best they can do, because where the various pieces of apparatus are they're all up at the top. Right. So if you're gonna camouflage them, that's where you're gonna really need most of your camouflage.
And the stipulation of the wall sounds good to you?
I think the wall sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Integral
So it
color.
blends in.
Yeah, integral color.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Dow?
No, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Norman?
No, I think Judd's comment about the wall is a good one, and something that looks decent and doesn't have to be painted or maintained. And take care of our tree, that's all I can tell you.
Mr. Dowling?
Down to me, it's just as long as it looks like that one is done, it's all good.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree that pine tree design did not work out at all. Luckily, the slag piles had most of the view from Mayor Main Streets on that particular one, but this one will stand out. So yes, we would encourage that. Other than that, I like the idea of the block wall comment, Vice Chairman, and with that, I'm going to ask you for a motion, please, sir.
I motion that we approve DR 18-013 Pinnacle Consulting Wireless Communication Facility with the following stipulations. One, that the project is developed in conformance with the development plan submitted for the November 19th, 2018 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Two, that the project conforms to code review board comments dated April 20th, 2018. Three, building permit shall be applied for by 12 months from the date of approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission, or the design review shall be subject to revocation procedures. Four, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of the condition shall be issued prior to the certificate of occupancy. Five, that the masonry block wall at the base of the structure be constructed of maintenance-free dyed brown masonry block. And six, the Jesse closet better look as good as what was presented to us.
Well, do I have a second that motion without item number 6?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Commissioner Norwood seconds the Vice Chairman's. You have that okay?
Yes.
Okay, there wasn't that first condition was left off in your stipulations by staff about concordance for the plans, the development plan. So when you type that up, be sure that that's in there. Okay, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please, Amber.
Commissioner Hart?
Aye.
Commissioner Dowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Dowling?
Aye.
Commissioner Norwood?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Wasden?
Aye.
Chairman Williams?
Aye. Motion unanimously carried. Good luck and take good care of that tree. Yes, please. All right, our next item on the agenda is DR 18014, Immaculate Conception for the construction of the new senior housing complex at 700 North Bill Gray Road. Mr. Ellis, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, Commission. DR 18014, Immaculate Conception Senior Living. It's located at 700 North Bill Gray Road, out on Highway 89A towards Sedona, Zone CF Community Facility. If you remember, last year, PCU 17005 and DR 17005 were approved in August for multi-story senior living, assisted living, memory care facility out at the church property. One of the stipulations with the conditional use permit was they had a year to apply for their building permits. That didn't happen back in October of this year. You approved an extension of time for them to get their building permits. We also required them to come back to design review because they have since changed the footprint of the building. It's now going down to 3 stories from 4. It's gonna be approximately 142,000 square feet. The overall footprint is what's changed, a little bit of the site design, the elevations, the concept, the design, sticking with what's out there with the church and school, that's all the same. No changes really from what they had last year. There's 112 parking spaces. Water and wastewater will be handled on site. City doesn't have any sewer or water out there. Lot line adjustment still going to be required because of where the location of the building is and the lot lines on there. Their site plan still has access coming around adjacent to 89A here with parking up front, the building, over in this area here, and again, it's down to the 3 stories. A little closer view of the site there, showing the landscaping around the building here, on the perimeter here, and then around the building here and here, on the backside over here. The church has long-term master plan to possibly put in more schools, more ball fields, gymnasium, other structures as they can. So this is just one more piece to that. Again, they have several different floors, color-coded units here, independent, assisted, memory care, rectory, parish units. That's the first floor plan showing the breakup of those different facilities, units. Same thing with the second floor, and again with the 3rd floor there. Those are the elevations. Again, they keep with the architecture that's already out there with the existing church, with the school. Kind of keep that same design format, just lowered down to 3 stories instead of 4. The rear side elevation there. That's the existing church. That's the newer school, grade school. There's a few years old. That stays with that architectural style. Those are showing the parish offices and the social hall. That's looking towards off the backside there of the church area and the social hall, towards part of the property. The highway's out here. You can see the highway signs there. Looking towards the south a little bit. That's looking towards the area of the rectory. This is all kind of to the west and south of the church a little bit, showing the vacant property that's there. That's part of where the access comes around back here behind the church and then comes down through here. That's where you access coming in off Bill Gray Road, off 89A. You're going to turn, that's where that access will start and go around the church to the backside. Again, that's part of that access way there. Another view of it. And that's the church, the front of the church, as you see from the courtyard area. That's all I have for a presentation. The applicant is here. There's several members of the project can answer any questions you may have. I can answer any questions you may have.
All right. Commissioner Hart, any questions?
I have my questions for the applicant.
Okay. Commissioner Dow, any?
No, sir.
Commissioner Norwood?
No questions.
Vice Chairman?
Scott, I don't have any questions for you at this point.
Okay. Okay, so, all right. Okay, thank you, Scott. And who's here for speak to us tonight for the church? Your name, please, for the record.
My name's John Martin. I'm the design architect for the project. We also have Brent Malpin, who's the local architect for the project. John Kazumi, who's with SEC, and he's the engineer. Mike Mangini and Mark Carlisle from the church.
Okay. Thank you. Basically, it's the same number of Same number of units, just spread out a little bit different
The
footprint.
project is essentially the same number of units as your previous approval. The reason for the lowering of the building were, there was some concern about, with the fire chief, we're a 4-story building in that side of town. So we had to come back with those revisions.
Okay. Commissioner Norwood, do you have any questions of the applicant?
No, I don't, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Dowling, any questions?
Nope.
Commissioner Hart, do you have any questions of the applicant?
Yes, on the site plan, I noticed that the leach field for your septic system is in the middle of the play area between the future high school gymnasium and the existing soccer field. Is there a reason why it's in the middle of the play area and not on more of the periphery?
Maybe, Prashant?
If you will state your name for the record, sir.
Ishan Ginige, SCC. I'm not exactly sure which leach field we are talking about. There is one.
Well, it was in one of the previous
I guess
submittals, and then I think it's, yes, that one. Which one is that?
It's not in
Sheet 4
the
of
same
20.
place.
4.1?
You showed.
Right here.
Yeah.
So this sheet 4 of 20 shows it down here.
Yeah, they're showing it in here.
So I believe we are talking about a leach field somewhere over here. Is that right?
I think it's a little bit lower.
Somewhere in here.
Yeah, almost right in the middle between
Yeah.
the existing soccer field and the proposed gymnasium.
So I think couple of things that maybe we need to discuss is this future school and future buildings were just a placeholder to get an idea about the overall concept. Of course, as the site develops, most probably these buildings might not be at the same location. And when we originally started discussing about the project, of course, because the city utilities were not available, we did look at having on-site treatment for, that's how the leach field came into being. However, as the site has, the project has evolved, we are thinking about certain partnerships. So I don't think we have an exact answer on the treatment. However, in the event that there would be a treatment system, most probably it would happen somewhere in here. In that event, some of these future buildings will have to be relocated accordingly. So that the future building design was not part of this analysis. I do agree it's a little bit misleading. There was one reason that why this overall site was developed. When we came out about a year ago, there was discussion about circulation. So this circulation plan was developed by us just to show that a road can go through and we could have buildings based on how the site could be developed at a future date. I know it's kind of a long-ended answer, but that's how it evolved over the last 18 months to 2 years.
Can I maybe add just a little something there? Maybe I'm off base on this, but I do believe that the septic / sewer water, wastewater treatment, that's actually all basically permitted through Yavapai County and not necessarily directly responsibility of the city. Am I correct?
That is right. The permitting would go to Yavapai County.
Right. So, okay. I just wanted to clarify that in this weird loophole of things, the county actually has kind of the say-so overall on the wastewater treatment for this situation. So,
Well, my issue is just that it's you know, you've got a leach line in the middle of a play area.
Play areas make beautiful leach fields.
I
But the county's
disagree.
taking care of that one for us.
I've worked in a place where, yeah, we work really hard to keep the kids away
That's-
from the leach fields.
Those play areas are all conceptually proposed. for
I
the
understand
future.
that, I understand that.
They have nothing to do with what you guys are looking at tonight.
Yeah. When they come back with
As
future
far as
plans.
being- As far as being underneath a possible proposed future ball field, there's no guarantees. So that's something that probably shouldn't even be an issue at this time until they come back later with another proposal.
Well, I think it's a question that should be asked, though. Like I said, you've got, basically, you're putting a leach field right next to a play area that you eventually are thinking of having it as a play area or part of a play area. And you might want to reconsider trying to get it to a more peripheral area. Okay.
It's a valid comment. Obviously, if and when these buildings are developed, definitely we could definitely consider that.
Any other questions?
On the elevations, we could go to the front elevation. I noticed that when you had projections, horizontal projections coming out in all the tower situations, you continued them up and finished on the roof over here on the left, where it looks like you've got the projection not going all the way up. Had you considered the possibility of continuing that up and having that as one unit so that it matches your other towers?
You mean this drop here?
Well, I'm looking at the other towers that go up to roofs, like the one over on the right. Move to the
These are
left.
stair towers that actually access the roof.
Okay. Does this one go up?
This one does.
Okay, and if it does, why don't you just continue the whole element up to just so that it matches the rest of your elevation?
Continue, I don't understand.
You're talking about below it instead of the 2/3 right there?
Yeah,
Go over to the
instead of a
right?
notch, just have,
Oh, this whole element?
Yeah.
yes. That way it would work better with the rest of what you got going on.
You're right, except that it would be more than we need for the stair tower. Maybe we could work with making that more pleasant.
Well, isn't that the area to the right, isn't that the landing?
That's the roof. There's a landing inside there with a door to the roof.
Okay, because when I was looking at the elevations, the windows on the right side, those were where the landings were, and the actual stairwell was,
That's right.
yeah.
There's no apartment up on that fourth. That's
Well,
just a
I
window.
understand that.
Yeah.
That's just the shape of that's just the size of the stair tower.
Yeah.
I hate to just put empty space on the roof just for that reason.
Well, it's just like I said, all the other places where you've got the walls projection up, you go out and you cap it on the roof, and then on this one, you've got an odd little notch.
There's a little notch there as well for the same reason. Maybe it's less noticeable there. We'll certainly think about making a bigger landing up there and continuing that element.
I just think it'll, give you a more unified elevation.
Any other questions, sir?
And that's it.
Mr. Dow?
No, sir.
Vice Chair?
No, I think we've had a lot of questions over the last year and a half, 2 years. I don't have any more at this time.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Norwood, you're okay? You're okay?
I'm fine.
Kelly? I was out there looking at that parking lot on the highway. We'll go back to the site plan.
Maybe the landscape plan.
Yeah, right there is fine. Okay, that's gonna be, you don't show it here, but that's down below the highway, isn't it? Is that the
Yes.
way? About how far down is that, do you estimate?
I can't. That's off the top of my head. But 89A is, the whole thing slopes this way.
It slopes down in that way, right?
But this part of the site, if you remember the photographs,
Right,
this part of the site we're in here drops down.
yeah.
Seems like it's
Yeah, I know it's drops down in two directions, it looks like.
Yeah, so the highway is out there,
Yeah,
and you can see that it's, from the natural grade, it's up.
right. Okay. Yeah, I've always concerned about the parking lots being out, visibility, and I understand you want to get the apartments away from the highway.
What you'll see coming down 89 from Cottonwood is a church and you see the building in
The church, yeah.
And in fact, that was one of the stipulations, is the church had to
Right.
stand proud
Right.
of this building. We had to stay below it.
Sure.
And a few stories also helped with that.
Okay, right.
But I don't think the parking lot, I'm not saying you won't see it,
But it's not gonna be
it is
it's
recessed.
not gonna stand out and bite you. And you're gonna have some landscaping along there anyways, some natural growth through there. Okay, I don't have any other, other than that, like I say, we hashed this out pretty much last year, with the original design, and, so I don't have any other further thing, unless you have some other comments, sir.
Well, I want to thank the staff for putting this together. I have a bunch of boards in the car that I didn't need.
Yeah.
It was a nice presentation, nice way to do it.
Good, yes. I think we've got it. Thank you, sir, very much. I have no public questions. The public, so I'll close the floor to the public. Commissioner Hart, you want to start us off?
I've already addressed my comment.
You addressed your comments, all right. Commissioner Dowling, any further?
I just want to say that I appreciate it, the design of it, and the colors used, and it doesn't look like a box senior living, so I think it's gonna really help Cottonwood stand out as you drive in. You're gonna be, wow, what's that, you know? So I appreciate this design.
Right. Commissioner, comments?
No, it's,
Further?
Nice plan, and I hope you get it started and you're successful with it.
Good. Commissioner Dowling?
I was gonna go drag a horse in and beat it for a while,
Yeah.
but no, okay. No, none for me, thank you.
Okay. The only comment I have is to Mr. Mongini, you reserve one of those memory units with my name. If I need it here in a couple of years.
Make it two.
Make it two, yeah. All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Vice Chairman, I would,
I move
What's
that
your
we
motion?
approve DR 18-014 Immaculate Conception with the following stipulations as outlined by staff. One, that the project is developed in conformance with the development plan submitted for the November 19, 2018 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Two, the project conforms to Code Review Board comments dated April 11, 2017. Project submittal comments dated July 5th, 2017, including a traffic impact statement, code review comments dated August 21st, 2018, and any and all prior project approval stipulations and any other comments generated during the plan review of the project. Three, the lot line adjustment is completed, approved by staff, and recorded with Yavapai County prior to submittal for building permits. Four, approval is only for the current phase one shown on plans submitted for this meeting. Additional phases and future expansions for this and other uses, i.e. high school, middle school, etc., are required to go through the appropriate review processes, including code review and design review if applicable. 5, design review approval is contingent on meeting all requirements associated with the approval of PCU 17-004 and PCU 17-004 EXT. 6, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of these design and review stipulations shall be issued prior to the certificate of occupancy.
do I have a second to the motion, please?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dell seconds the Vice Chairman's motion. Roll call, Amber, please.
Commissioner Hart,
Aye.
Commissioner Dowell,
Aye.
Commissioner Dowling,
Aye.
Commissioner Narwood,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Wasden,
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye, unanimously carried. Gentlemen, good luck. All right. All right. Give it a moment to clear the,
Commissioner Wasden, you have a side career there in,
Monotonology?
yeah, like you could like books on tape for falling asleep. I mean, it's kind of there's actually a genre now called it's called ASMR, and it's like very much like that, talking very softly and gently.
we had an event going when you're going to bench the rock wall.
Well, if the stipulation list gets too long, I guess there is the possibility that you guys might fall asleep. So
Right.
keep
That's
that in
right.
mind down the road.
Yes.
I saw Commissioner Narwood over there kind of nodding.
Yes,
Well, these books would make great pillows this time.
yes.
They're nice and
I'm
fluffy.
learning how to take a nap with.
That's right. Well, yes, and these, that's part of the duties we assigned the Vice Chairman. He has to torture, go through those for us.
Still on the internet.
All right, onward and onward. ZO 18001, amendment to the section 405 sign requirements. Scott, you want to fill us in what's going on here?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. ZO 18004, amendment to section 405, B3 and E5 regarding flag banners. Currently, within the sign ordinance, there's nothing that specifically states anything about flag banners. It just barely briefly references banners. There's been a lot of question on what that really includes. So given we've had a lot of complaints recently on the proliferation of flag banners throughout town, we looked into it and we decided that it'd be best to include a definition of flag banners and specifically prohibit them as well. As you can see, there are throughout town, every part of town, there's flag banners. These photos were taken today, so these are all what are existing now. Some of them, that one's a little far to see, but some of them are actually kind of in rough shape. They're not being maintained, taken care of very well. They're really faded. This is one of those that's faded. Here's some more out here along 260 that are faded as well. Hard to read. They're almost just material flapping in the wind at this point. Some newer ones, seems like every day you turn around, there's new ones somewhere. These are all down Main Street here. You can see one back here a little bit as well. That's a new one.
Oh, my goodness.
It's another one there. And these, again, all these right here are on Main Street. And there's some more. A lot of these are with businesses that are just opening as well. So these new businesses come in, they put up these flag banners. So we're looking at making an amendment. Again, section 405B3 is the definitions, basically adding the term flag banner and specifying that they're going on poles as well as everything that's already there. And then 405E5, there shall be no roof signs, signs which are projecting or cantilevered from buildings, banners, or flag banners. So those are the changes that we're looking at making.
So they wouldn't be allowed at all?
No.
All right, how about,
No flag banners anywhere, up or down, right? They're all outlawed.
They could possibly be allowed with temporary use permit, but as an everyday sign, no. It would, if they were allowed, it would be specifically for an event during the duration of that event.
So then these people would have to come and take they'd have to take these signs down.
Okay.
They're not grandfathered.
Correct. That's my understanding of how this would be moving forward, is that it would apply to everything as it exists.
I mean, nobody can argue that, well, I already had it up, and, I mean, does the language state specifically?
The language does not state that. That's something we'd have to discuss with our code enforcement and our city attorney.
Okay, maybe you want to do that, I don't know. Okay.
Is there a certain, does it have to be like seen from the roadway, or does it have to be so many feet off the road, or, you understand what I'm saying? Because if you own a huge property and you just put something up for, I don't know, a family event or something, I understand what the purpose of this is, but at what point do we say there's no flag banners anywhere on your property? I'm just curious, is there a, like, it has to be visible from a roadway, or it has to be visible from a public place, or?
Well, I mean, basically, they are prohibited, so if you put one up and it can be seen, you know, if you're in violation if you put one up, but if it's seen, obviously, it's gonna generate a complaint. You know, if you put one in your backyard behind your building and nobody can see it, well.
Or like you said, if it's for an event, you know, then they can get a permit for that. So it's not so restrict. I think the issue is they look junky, they're everywhere, and it's basically taking advantage of additional signage that they're not approved for in the existing code.
As the code sits right now, it does prohibit banners. However, it does allow a banner for a temporary use permit.
Yeah,
for
like
an event, you can put a banner up.
Like the banner up there at the top, what is the, I know that is allowed, but
that
there
is
a time stipulation.
Yeah, that is another exception to the banner rule. You can't put a grand opening banner up for 30 days. 30 days. Once that 30 days is up, it has to come down.
Yeah.
What about those ones that they blow air through?
Mr. Windy.
Animated signs are not allowed either.
That's not allowed?
No.
Okay.
Because we can probably thank car dealers for these, because I think that's where they all started.
That's right,
basically.
yeah, over there at the Graham Auto. But,
Right.
so it's already not allowed, or it will not be allowed?
Animated signs are not allowed.
That's-
That's considered an animated sign, is not allowed currently.
They put some up at Galpin for a little while. They had
Yeah,
a couple
Graham
of-
Auto used to have one
And
too.
Graham Auto had the, with the air blown
Oh, okay, yeah.
things, so they just stay on top of that.
So do we want to make a motion then?
I just want, sorry, I'm gonna jump in real quick. Is there gonna be any, will there be any issues with people hanging flags? Because I could, somebody just puts like, the United States flag on the front of their building, that's a separate deal?
Yeah,
Or
that's,
if they put like,
we can't
if they
regulate
hang their
that.
Trump flag or their Confederate flag or whatever, that's a separate,
That's
They're
something we
not-
can't touch.
Okay.
but those are still flag banners.
Here's what the wording is. So what's the wording?
They are not considered flag banners.
I think it says.
Okay.
There's difference, they would be flags. I mean,
Okay.
I thought it
Yeah.
Just making sure there's
Yeah,
not gonna
yeah,
be some
no, they would
weird
be flags.
unintentional consequence.
Right.
All right.
Commissioner Hart, you have any questions?
No.
Commissioner Dow?
No, I'm all right.
Okay, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm glad you're, I know we've talked about this for a long time. I'm glad you guys are doing this.
And the flag banner lobby didn't show up to try and.
That's right.
Right,
Convince
and, yeah,
Surprised you. I thought there
I
was
second Commissioner Norwood's
people in here.
concern. Please check with the city attorney. If
Flags around.
we need to modify, we can come back and do that, but we want to really make sure that, you know, if you have to change the wording, but
Right.
if
Yeah,
this
we
covers it, we want to make sure it's existing as well as proposed.
Yeah, we can check with them.
Okay, good, great. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion, Vice Chairman.
I move that and we're recommending this to city council, right?
Correct.
Yes.
We recommend approval to city council ZO-18-004 amendment to section 405 sign requirements, consideration of zoning ordinance text amendment to section 405.B.3 and 405.E.5 regarding flag banners.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dowling seconds the Vice Chairman's motion. All in favor? Well, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hart.
Aye.
Commissioner Dowell.
Aye.
Commissioner Dowling.
Aye.
Commissioner Narwood.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Wasden.
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye.
Australia.
You realize the city's gonna have to hire somebody.
Okay, Scott?
I know.
Yes.
Next one, ZO 18012, amendment to section 418C1 zone light commercial.
Have to hire somebody just for this.
Yes, this is a consideration of a text amendment for section 418D5 regarding front and rear yard setbacks. within the recently created Arts, Culture, and Entertainment District. Within that area, especially when you come from almost Mingus Avenue this way into Old Town, there's several properties, especially here in Old Town in the Historic District, where there's a few vacant ones. We've had proposed projects come through. However, we have to enforce what's in the zoning ordinance of 20-foot front yard setback, 5-foot rear yard setback. Currently, there's 0 side yards, so that's not an issue. But on some of these lots down here, 20-foot front setback basically renders the lot unusable. And it doesn't keep with what you see out here on Main Street right now. You have almost every store frontage going right up to the sidewalk, then you would have one 20 feet back, and that's just not going to look good. So what we're looking at doing is, and this has happened, there's been a few properties further out past right here on Main Street where we've seen this as well, where it's been very, very difficult to develop the property with these setbacks. So what we're looking to do is change it on a case-by-case basis where the community development director can modify those and also modify the landscape setback as needed to make these projects work.
My question is, I think it's a necessary adjustment for those reasons. I think that should be, in that part of our design review, we can, if we had this in the ordinance, we had made it the purview of approval of design review by the commission rather than, I don't see the necessity of the community director getting involved, because it's going to have to come before us for design review if they change it.
It is, but at the staff level, before it comes to you, we have the opportunity to discuss it with them, see what works, see what doesn't, before they spend all the time and money to design something to come here and then have to potentially change it. We can head that off up front in the beginning of the project to even see if it's very, doable.
Okay. Because I would just think that we're going to have the, design.
You can still
that,
weigh in on it when it
Yeah.
comes to you. I think in the beginning, though, when it's still in the planning stages and they're discussing it with staff, being able to say what works, what doesn't, so they can get that solidified. When they do spend the money to generate their plans to come to design review, they don't have to, keep doing it over and over again if it comes down
So
to
we
it.
wlet's have anything to say with that design at all.
Oh, you still have design reviews say,
Yeah, but we couldn't amend that. What the community director approved, let's just say she approved the no setback, and we, on that particular property, I'm particularly looking outside of, from about, my view, although there's a few exceptions, but from about 6th Street on out to making it all to Walgreens, it just seems like, and I can understand the entertainment district being a boundary because it's already defined. We ran into that problem before with the bridge to bridge kind of thing, but I just thought that would be something we could do. I mean, it would be in the statute that could be done, which it isn't right now. I agree. That's a good flexible item. So you don't have to go to a PAD. You don't have to rezone the property to PAD to get us to amend that setback. They could do it with the existing zoning.
Right, yeah, right now it would have to be.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem. I guess I'm just questioning the concept there. I'll let the other guys weigh in. Commissioner Ernst?
As part of the review process, we're giving the potential clients the option of demonstrating that, okay, on this particular piece of property, we've got all sorts of other buildings that are coming out to the property line, and I'm using, and I would have suffer a hardship if I have to go 20 foot back when they're right there at the property line, or demonstrate that they're conforming with the general setback in the area that exists. In other words, when I've dealt with design review boards, if I was in an area where they had a 20-foot or a 30-foot setback, but there were a whole bunch of existing structures that were 5 or 10 feet away, I could use that as a justification for using the same setback.
Yeah, the thing here is, we could still do that, but they have to rezone the PAD for us under the existing ordinance.
Okay.
This
well,
would give us.
No,
the
but I mean,
flexibility.
this would be.
This would allow for that. Right now, that's
Yeah,
not.
this
that
would allow
can't.
for that.
Automatically. Okay,
Without
all
having to
right.
go to rezoning. We can
Right.
just do it
Okay,
in
yeah, that's
design
what I'm
review.
trying- yeah.
Right, right now, we can't, we have no avenue to let that happen. This is what would allow that to happen.
Commissioner,
Okay, sorry.
okay, Commissioner Dowell?
Let me ask this
Norwood,
question, Scott.
Commissioner Norwood,
Yeah.
please. Commissioner Dowell?
I'm sorry.
I don't have any problem with approving it for the community development person.
I don't either, and part of it is, I know we've restricted it down to a certain area, and the other part of that is, it still comes to us for design and review, so it's not like the slab can go up that with, you know, we still have control over that, but it does open up the possibility for these guys to look at up front before they come to us, is this something that we even want to pursue?
Commissioner Norwood, no, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I just want to make sure I understand this. Okay, this is a lot, right? And there's a sidewalk somewhere along this zone, right? Somebody can build a building right up to it and have a door that comes in right off the sidewalk, like your own, like all the businesses in your own. Is that what we're saying?
They were saying like what's out here right now on Main Street.
Right, anywhere, even if there's an empty lot and they're gonna build a new building, they can build it right up.
Arts and Entertainment District, huh?
If it's within the Arts and Entertainment District and fits with the surrounding buildings, yes. If not, then we can still hold them to the existing setbacks of 20 feet. It's a case-by-case basis depending on where they're at and what they want to do.
Okay.
Got it. Commissioner Dowell?
Yeah, I would say that purely from a process standpoint, it's gonna be a lot more attractive to people coming in if they're venturing to do something here, to find out whether or not they can actually get it off the ground the way it needs to be prior to digging a hole and shooting, you know, and taking shots at it. So I think it's a good idea to give you guys a purview to lay that out for them from the beginning, so it's not like a surprise after the fact. So I would support it.
So, that's fine. This scenario, the board disagrees with that particular setback. It's out here on Main Street somewhere, 10th Street, whatever. And the commissioner said, oh yeah, you can build up to a 5-foot setback there. We get the design review. Can we override that with this way this is written or not? Or we are, that is set in stone, right? As far as design review?
No.
Oh, I think it is. It says that it's approved by the,
Staff can approve that, but it has to come before.
The overall project still gets approved by design review.
okay, so we could, that's just what I'm trying to
So-
clarify, okay, in my own mind.
Right.
We still have the prerogative of saying, we still think it needs to be back 20 feet
Right.
at that particular location. Okay, that's fine. And I agree, that gives them some idea, better idea going before they spend the money for the plans and stuff to come before us. But we still have some latitude to think about. That's the main thing. We want to have the final word. That's our job, and go forward. All right, Vice Chairman.
I
I'll let
move that
you-
we recommend ZO-18-012, amendment to section 418C-1, zone light commercial, consideration of zoning ordinance, text amendment to section 418.D.5 regarding front and rear yard setbacks and landscape requirements within the arts, culture, and entertainment district boundaries.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Hart seconds the Vice Chairman's motion. Amber, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hart,
Aye.
Commissioner Dowell,
Aye.
Commissioner Dowling,
Aye.
Commissioner Narwood,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Wasden,
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye, unanimously carried. Thank you. I entertain a motion for adjournment.
Well, hey, I wanted to ask just real quick, I asked, I should have come back to it with Circle K, but about signage, because, they had some extra stuff up there. Cottonwood runs with
Cottonwood runs on
Dunkin and stuff like that. That's why I wanted to see, they put that up. I'd like to see that I know it says in here to come before you, but I have questions what the allotment of signage is for, especially for something like that. Because it seemed, they're on a corner, but they're really not. They're not on a.
I think the sign you're referring to was actually inside the building.
No, it's on the outside, on the drive-up side, right on the outside.
Yeah, they're limited to a certain amount of square footage, and it depends on their frontage. We'd have to see what that is.
Yeah. I don't know if this is enforceable, but this has happened a couple times, and it drives me crazy, is the depictions that we get are not realistic with what is actually in their plans, and I think that's
And we try to
misleading.
reiterate to them that they need to show us what it's going to look like actually on the street here.
And maybe you could even say, I don't know how everybody else feels about this, if this isn't accurate, we reject it. It just is like, when you first look at that, you're like, wow, that is a psychological buy-in to, this looks great because it's a realistic rendering. But the reality is, if you look at that, there's no outside seating in that front space. There's no trees out there. But already you see that concept, and it's made an effect on you to make a better decision. So anyway, I know you
Tell
guys.
them it could set it back for, at least we table it till you bring us.
Yeah.
To a future meeting to bring us some, you know,
You've
they want a
you've done it on
30-day,
previous
they want a
projects.
30-day delay, you know.
Right.
And then the last item, I know it kind of comes back to, we talked about code enforcement, but, you know, as we enforce some of these things with new businesses, trash containment and doing that, you know, and I don't want to single out anybody, but I know like trash for one of the restaurants here in Old Town, it's back up here, so is their grease trap. And I don't know that code enforcement actually has done anything with that, but that's like our back door here to Old Town, and it's like, there's only one code enforcement officer, but that is something that, I know there's been some things that have just kind of taken place, but that's one of the things that I think we need to be consistent about, and if it is from the code enforcement standpoint, but it looks so sloppy to have an exposed trash container and grease trap. I don't care if there's not a place, there is a place to make room for that. It might require some cooperation with neighbors, but just to throw it out on the side of the road, I don't think is acceptable for the city, and we would not allow that anywhere else. They just went and did it. So
Yeah, we can look into that, see what's going on.
Ask for forgiveness rather than permission.
Yeah, and I think I think that kind of caveats off, we can make all these rules we want to make, but if we don't have staff to enforce it, then it would be, it goes without,
yeah.
if it's not going to be enforced, then it's almost like, why even do it? And I know it's not your position,
Scott
but
is responsible for
yeah,
that.
but it's just one of those things that I know I drive around too, and I think, nah, that's got to be something that's with code. But I know you guys have limited.
A lot of what we take on is complaint based. So we get a complaint about it, we'll address it. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot of staff or time to go around and look for.
Commissioner
everything that's out
Narwood
there.
would love to go out on weekends. Give him a taser, right? As long as there's a taser involved. Yeah.
That's right.
If we get complaints about it, we'll look into it and address the issue.
Let's entertain a motion.
Time I have. First place they're going to check is that burger joint that's on the bend over here.
Love that place. Hey, yeah. There was no place, that's why I'm saying this, there was no place on that property for it, so reached out to the neighbor, cooperated, got a spot, so I know it can be done. You just have to do it.
Certainly can.
So I move that we revoke privileges from Commissioner Narwood for 2 months, starting immediately. Okay, I move that we adjourn.
Second, carried, adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you, congratulations, gentlemen.